Hello dolls, and welcome back to another video of my series where I break down the years from 1960 to 1979. Today we've made it to the last year of the 1960s, 1969. What an insane year. We have Woodstock, we have incredible fashion, the first man on the moon. So much happened and I'm so excited to share this with you. As always, I am mainly focusing on the US and the UK in these videos, but I'm also gonna dabble a little into world history. Make sure to subscribe to not miss out on the 1970s that are gonna come starting tomorrow. I'm so excited to make it on to the next decade, and also make sure to check out all the previous years. I started in 1960, I already covered all the years from 1960 to 1968, so make sure to watch those to take a deep look into the timeline of the 1960s. But yeah, today we're gonna talk about the year that brought the decade to a close. Welcome to 1969. As the swinging 60s drew to a close, 1969 marked the intersection of hope and disillusionment. It was a year of cosmic achievements, revolutionary creativity, and the stirring of new cultural awakenings. The boundless optimism of the decade's early years had matured, giving way to a more complex reality shaped by political unrest, societal upheaval, and a generation striving to redefine its identity. Yet even amidst these tensions, the era's spirit of creativity, exploration, and self-expression remained unshaken. From humanity's historic leap to the moon with Apollo 11 to the muddy, transcendent fields of Woodstock, 1969 was a year of groundbreaking achievements and cultural awakenings. It was a moment when music, fashion, and film came together to reflect both the decade's transformative energy and the first whispers of the seismic shifts that would define the 1970s. The optimism of the decade's earlier years had matured, blending with the weight of political unrest and societal shifts. In music, fashion, and film, 1969 represented both the culmination of a decade's worth of boundary-pushing creativity and the seeds of the transformations that would define the 1970s. From Woodstock's muddy, magical fields to the silver screen's gritty new realism, the year echoed with the energy of a generation grappling with change while forging its own identity. Yet, amidst it all, the spirit of innovation and self-expression continued to shine, brightly shaping a year that remains unforgettable. Politically, 1969 was a year of soaring achievement and deepening divides. The world collectively held its breath as Neil Armstrong took humanity's first steps on the moon, a triumph that symbolized technological progress and unity amid turbulent times. Yet, back on Earth, the Vietnam War showed no abating, with oppositions reaching a crescendo. The moratorium to end the war in Vietnam brought millions to the streets in one of the largest anti-war demonstrations in US history, highlighting the generational rift between the establishment and the rising counterculture. The fight for civil rights continued to evolve, as the focus shifted towards issues of economic justice and political representation for Black Americans. In New York City, the Stonewall riots marked a watershed moment for LGBTQ+ rights, galvanizing a moment that demanded visibility and equality. Meanwhile, the feminist movement gained momentum, with figures like Gloria Steinem becoming prominent voices for change. Organizations such as the National Organization for Women intensified their advocacy, tackling workplace discrimination, reproductive rights, and broader systematic inequalities. To draw out the price development of the 1960s and 70s in the United States, I am comparing the same three things in every video: the cost of a loaf of bread, a movie ticket, and a new house, as well as kind of like the bonus thing of the average household income to give this more context. In 1969, about 38% of women were working, and we will see that in the next couple of years, this number will slowly but surely increase. In 1969, a bread was still around 25 cents. I find this really interesting because bread is the one thing that from 1960 to 1969 had kind of like the most stability in price. So compared to the average household income, it definitely got cheaper. A movie ticket was around $1.42, and a new house would set you back around $15,500. Keep that in mind because it would increase drastically by the next year. The average household income was around $8,550 per family. By 1969, fashion had become a dynamic blend of mod glamour, bohemian chic, and bold futurism. The miniskirt, still reigning supreme, evolved further as designers introduced hot pants and micro minis. In Paris, couturists like Yves Saint Laurent led the change with the safari look, characterized by utilitarian jackets, leather belts, and earthy tones that evoked the allure of global travel. Meanwhile, the London boutique style championed by Mary Quant dominating the wardrobes of young women worldwide with miniskirts, pinafore dresses and knee socks. Biba was another big player in the UK, bringing a sort of dark bohemian fashion into the wardrobes of young women and men. French designers like André Courrèges and Pierre Cardin adapted their style to cater to this youthful trend. When we talk about the boutique style in London in the 1960s, it just shows that there was such a wide array of different dresses and styles. What I am wearing today is definitely more emblematic of that bohemian late 1960s style. This is something I could see Pamela Curson, the girlfriend of Jim Morrison of The Doors, sell in her Themis boutique in the US, but kind of like the idea of several tiny boutiques, everyone kind of catering towards a different style, but all of them being equally popular at the time was definitely the way to go in London in the 1960s. Woodstock encapsulated the counterculture's rejection of traditional fashion norms. The festival showcased hippie staples like Ozzie Clarke's flowing peasant dresses, Jimi Hendrix's military jackets, and fringed suede, Emilio Pucci's psychedelic prints and Edwardian-style blouses, alongside Emilio Pucci's psychedelic prints and Edwardian-style blouses. It also popularized designs inspired by Native Americans, Indians, West Africans, and Pakistani fashion, such as Indian print tunics, African dashikis, and Pakistani trousers. These styles were soon commercialized by major US retailers such as JCPenney, marking the mainstream of the countercultural aesthetic. The late 1960s saw fashion reflecting the economic and political shifts of the time. Rising salaries for men and women allowed young people to afford colorful and decorative clothing, even during fiscal turbulence. This era of fashion also reflected a growing sense of globalization. Yves Saint Laurent's Rive Gauche collection, launched in 1969, introduced accessible and youthful designs to a broader audience. His Safari collection, inspired by the uniforms of the Afrika Korps, featured high-slung belts, knee-high boots, and cotton khaki jackets, signaling the increasing influence of global travel and cultural exchange on fashion. Across the Atlantic, London's designers pushed eclectic, youth-driven styles. Ozzie Clarke's flowing maxi dresses, often adorned with Celia Berthwell's whimsical prints, and Biba's Gothic Victorian influences created nostalgic yet rebellious silhouettes. Meanwhile, men's fashion embraced the peacock revolution, with psychedelic prints, velvet jackets, and narrow collars taking center stage. Levi's jeans became a universal staple, bridging practicality and countercultural cool. Jane Birkin became a style icon in 1969, epitomizing her effortless chic with her baby tees, flared jeans, and straw basket. And doe-eyed look on its cover helped solidify the bell-bottom trend that would define the 1970s. Her style embodied the casual yet impactful approach to fashion that resonated with young people. While the connection between fashion and politics during this era may seem a little more subtle than in other decades, it remained significant. The miniskirt, for instance, symbolized liberation and freedom. Though contemporary fashion often nods to social movements, its impact has yet to reach the transformative levels of the 1960s. The late 1960s marked a seismic shift in American youth culture, as reflected in the era's fashion, which Life magazine aptly described as freaky new freedom. By 1969, there was no single dominant style. Fashion choices ranged from motte miniskirts and go-go boots to bell-bottom jeans and fringed vests or velvet tunics, mirroring the decade's eclectic and ever-changing social landscape. There is this wonderful photo series of American high schools in 1969 from that same Life article that I just quoted, and I feel like it is so incredible to see all of these different styles coming into fashion. Cultural revolution like civil rights, the women's liberation, and the sexual revolution collided with technological advancements that brought global events directly into people's homes via television and media. This unprecedented access to worldwide ideas and aesthetics inspired young people to use clothing as a medium of self-expression, blending influences from across the globe. My makeup look, for example, is very much inspired by Patty Boyd's makeup look that you can see in the Beatles' Get Back documentary. And because we now have all of this easy access to all this material from the 1960s, it is really important to note that this was something completely new in the late 1960s. The fact that news that would happen in Europe would be on the screen in the US at the same day was something completely new and unthought of. There are a couple of pictures from this live photo series that I would love to take a closer look at. Homemade pieces like Beverly Hills students Rosemary Shung's leather Indian dress became emblematic of how America's youth reimagined the world's diversity through their sartorial choices, creating personal styles that were bold, boundary-pushing, and deeply tied to the zeitgeist. Music in 1969 was groundbreaking, reflective of both the idealism and turmoil of the era. The Woodstock Music and Art Fair, held in August of 1969, became a defining moment not only for the year but for the entire counterculture. Over 400,000 people gathered for 3 days of peace, love, and legendary performances. Woodstock, held in Bethel, New York from August 15th to 18th in 1969, became an iconic moment in American cultural history. Despite being organized by 4 inexperienced promoters, the festival successfully attracted some of the biggest names in rock music, including Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, The Grateful Dead, Sly and the Family Stone, and Ravi Shankar. Initially, the towns of Woodstock and Wallkill denied permission for the event, but Max Yasgur, a farmer, offered his land for the festival, making the location the perfect backdrop for what would become a defining cultural event. Although tickets were sold to a limited number, around 400,000 attendees arrived, most of them demanding free entry. The lack of security and heavy rain turned the grounds into a muddy mess, but the audience bonded over the music, the atmosphere, and the heavy use of marijuana and psychedelics. Woodstock became a symbol of the era's counterculture, where peace, music, and unity took center stage. Despite the chaos and financial struggles of the event, Woodstock's cultural impact was monumental. Although the promoters ended up bankrupt, the film Woodstock from 1970, directed by Michael Wetlight, turned out to be a financial success, capturing the spirit of the festival for generations to come. The myth of Woodstock as 3 days of peace and music became enshrined in American history, symbolizing the aspirations and ideals of the 1960s counterculture. Later, festivals on the same site, such as the 1994 edition, were better organized, but failed to capture the same magic, and the 1999 festival was marred by a small riot. In 2008, the Museum of Bethel Woods opened on the original festival site, dedicated to preserving the legacy of the event and educating people about the music and culture that defined the era. Meanwhile, albums like Abbey Road by the Beatles marked the twilight of one of rock's most influential bands, while Led Zeppelin released their debut album. Signaling the dawn of hard rock, across the Atlantic, David Bowie's Space Oddity captured the awe of the moon landing, blending science fiction with poignant introspection. Soul and Motown persisted as popular genres, with hits from Marvin Gaye, Diana Ross, and Stevie Wonder, while artists like the Creedence Clearwater Revival and Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young brought America and harmony-laden folk rock into the mainstream. The top hits of 1969 reflected the diverse musical landscape of the era, blending pop, soul, rock, and psychedelic influences. Each one of these songs encapsulated a different aspect of 1960s culture, from the carefree optimism of pop to the growing social consciousness of soul and rebellious energy of rock. One of the biggest hits of the year was Sugar Sugar by the Archies, a bubblegum pop song that topped the charts for 4 weeks. The Archies, a fictional band created for the animated TV show The Archie Show, became a sensation, with this catchy, sweet tune that epitomized the playful, innocent side of late 1960s pop music. The song's surgery sweet melody and simple lyrics captured the spirit of the times, providing a stark contrast to the more serious social issues that were also taking center stage in the music world. On a different vein, Aquarius' Let the Sunshine In by the Fifth Dimension was another monumental hit that captured the spirit of the late 1960s. This upbeat, optimistic anthem became a symbol of the counterculture movement, celebrating the age of Aquarius and the dawning of a new era of peace, love, and enlightenment. This song's blend of pop, soul, and psychedelic influences made it a perfect reflection of the times, resonating with young people seeking social change and spiritual awakening. I Can't Get Next to You by The Temptations, also released in 1969, was one of the standout tracks in a world of Motown and soul music that year. With its infectious groove and powerful vocals, the song highlighted the growing emotional depth and complexity of soul music. The Temptations, known for their sophisticated sound and smooth harmonies, captured the emotional intensity of unrequited love with this hit, which became one of the biggest chart toppers. On the rock side, Honky Tonk Woman by the Rolling Stones was a major hit in 1969, marking a shift towards a grittier, more blues-infused sound of the band. The song's raw energy and swagger represented the Stones' evolving style, combining rock with country and blues influences. Honky Tonk Woman became one of their most memorable tracks, showcasing their rebellious spirit and hard-edged sound that is still considered one of their greatest songs. Finally, Everyday People by Sly and the Family Stone was a powerful anthem of unity and equality that spoke to the growing social and political movements of the year. With its infectious funk beat and message of embracing diversity, Everyday People became an anthem for the civil rights movement, and a key song in the development of funk music. Sly and the Family Stone's unique blend of soul, rock, and funk helped to push the boundaries of popular music and brought social consciousness to the forefront. By 1969, Hollywood was experiencing a significant shift in tone and style, moving away from the glossy, idealized portrayals of life that had dominated the previous decade during the studio era of Hollywood. This change reflected the broader societal shifts of the time, including the turbulence of the Vietnam War, civil rights struggles, and a growing disillusionment around the youth. The film industry began embracing more gritty, raw, and experimental aesthetics, resulting in a wave of groundbreaking films that broke with tradition and pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable on screen. One of the most influential films of the year, mostly because it was something so completely new, was Easy Rider by Dennis Hopper, which starred him alongside Peter Fonda. This countercultural road movie became a defining symbol of 1960s rebellion and the quest for freedom. The film's portrayal of two bikers traveling through the American South and Southwest in search of personal and societal liberation captured the disillusionment of a generation that was increasingly skeptical of mainstream culture. With its non-traditional narrative, experimental style, and reflective themes of alienation, Easy Rider marked a milestone in the rise of independent filmmaking, signaling that Hollywood no longer held a monopoly on filmmaking as an art form. I quickly have to intersect here. I'm a big movie geek, and I once read a book all about the making of this film, and it is absolutely insane. Basically, Dennis Hopper went up to the producers and was like, I have this vague idea of a film, and he also had Peter Fonda on board, and they just kind of started filming without even knowing where they wanted to go with this film. And in the end, there's a scene where they all take drugs, and they kind of like did that and then didn't know how to end the film, so that was kind of it. And I feel like when you look at it, a lot of people don't think that it is a great film. It absolutely flopped at first. It is now somewhat of a cult classic, but I get why people initially didn't like it. It's definitely something completely different. It's not like a regular movie by any means, but I just have to say I personally find it to be a great testament of the year and the time, and something definitely worth watching if you're interested in the late 1960s and counterculture. Another landmark film of 1969 was Midnight Cowboy, directed by John Schlesinger. This X-rated drama, which starred Jon Voight as a naive Texan trying to make it as a hustler in New York City and Dustin Hoffman as his unlikely companion, became a major cultural touchstone. Its raw exploration of loneliness, desperation, and the underbelly of urban life contrasted sharply with the more sanitized depictions of American life in earlier films. The movie's unflinching portrayal of the harsh reality faced by its characters, as well as its unconventional storytelling, made it a critical success. Midnight Cowboy won the Academy Award for Best Picture, making it the first and only X-rated film to ever receive this honor. Its success helped pave the way for more mature, complex films that dealt with taboo subjects, from mental illness to addiction to sexuality. Films like Butch Cassidy and The Sundance Kid also emerged during this year, blending humor with a deeper introspection. Starring Paul Newman and Robert Redford, this Western brought a fresh, light-hearted approach to the genre, juxtaposing action and adventure with moments of humor and philosophical reflection. The film's blend of stylish cinematography, memorable dialogue, and the chemistry between its leads made it one of the most beloved films of the decade. It stood in contrast to the dark, serious tone of many other films of the time, proving that Hollywood could explore complex emotional landscapes while still delivering popular entertainment. Gone were the days of glamorous escapist fantasies. Instead, filmmakers were tackling darker, more complex themes, exploring the flaws of society and the individuals within it. The boundaries between genres began to blur as filmmakers experimented with new storytelling techniques, and Hollywood audiences were introduced to more sophisticated, controversial, and emotionally raw films that captured the essence of an era in turmoil. The success of these films proved that there was a hunger for more realistic, complex, and often uncomfortable portrayals of life, and they set the stage for the bold, innovative filmmaking that would dominate the 1970s. So, what does 1969 really add up to? It was a year of contrast, where optimism and disillusionment coexisted. Humanity reached new heights with the moon landing, but the Vietnam War and civil unrest revealed the deep divides. Music, fashion, and film mirrored this duality, innovative and boundary-pushing, yet tingy with the weight of societal upheaval. Woodstock encapsulated the hope of a generation, while the rise of gritty independent films marked the industry's shift to more realistic portrayals of life. In the end, 1969 represented the end of an era, the last year of the 1960s, as the decade's ideals collided with the harsh reality of the world. The 1960s were a time of incredible transformation, a decade that felt like a whirlwind of change, energy, and hope. It was a time when the world seemed to be waking up, full of youthful rebellion and the desire to break free from old norms. The music, rock and roll, folk, and the rise of countercultural sounds became the soundtrack of a generation seeking freedom and expression. With iconic figures like Bob Dylan, the Beatles, and Jimi Hendrix leading the charge, fashion reflected the same sense of liberation, with mod and bohemian styles merging, bold prints and miniskirts, and the embrace of individuality. There was an optimism that anything was possible, from the moon landing to the civil rights movement. The 1960s embodied the dream of a world transformed by love, peace, and progress. But there was also a sense of turmoil as societal conflicts and political tensions began to surface, making the decade both exhilarating and complex. Looking back, the 1960s feel like a time when everything was in flux, but rooted in the spirit of questioning, of breaking free from the past to create something new. Tomorrow we'll talk about the dawn of the 1970s, where glam ruled and countercultural ideals gave way to new fashion, music, and style. So that is it for the 1960s. I cannot believe we've made it through the entire decade. What an incredible time. What an incredible set of years. I feel like even just looking at myself now in the 1969 outfit compared to my 1960 outfit, this feels like a completely different era of styles. The 1960s was such a time marked by so many changes. There was so much going on. And for me, it was so interesting to truly break this down year by year to see how this drastic change unfolded. I just quickly want to take a moment to thank you for watching these videos. We've already made it through 10 episodes, the entire 1960s. We have 9 more episodes ahead of us, all of the 1970s, and I'm so excited to dive into this new decade with you. Of course, I cannot end the 1960s and this entire decade, this video, without trying a tea. This one is called Winter Tea, very bland. This one is very fruity. It's a lot fruitier than I expected, but it's kind of like a punchy fruit flavor, so I feel like that's what they were going for. But yeah, that is it for 1969 and the entire 1960s. Please let me know what you think, what you thought, what you want to add to these videos. It has been such a wonderful journey for me to research this and bring you all the videos. I put my whole heart and so much work into these, and you watching them and enjoying them truly means the world. So I will see you, I don't think tomorrow, but the day after tomorrow. I think tomorrow is another vlog, but I will see you with the year 1970, the dawn of a new decade. I am so truly excited to step into the 70s with you, so make sure to subscribe to not miss out on the 1970s. If you enjoyed the video, I would love you to give it a thumbs up and maybe even share it with a friend. It supports me, it supports the channel, and it would truly mean the world. I hope you have a beautiful day. Go out, enjoy the sunshine and hopefully the snow. Take yourself some time to focus on you and your mental health today, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye, dolls!